Namaskar, good evening, welcome to this 12th class for this special revision series, reading comprehension being our focus ahead of civil services prelims, excuse me, that is to follow in 9 days. Today is what? The 18th of May, so we have exactly 9 days before the D-Day arrives and you write the civil services prelims examination for the year 2023. Once again, I am Bhuvan Apurva Jha and I welcome all those who are joining us live and who will watch this video later. So far, we have done an exhaustive coverage of the principles behind reading comprehension, including but not limited to identification of central idea, tone, the different questions that are asked by the commission, such as identification of inference, corollary, gist, assumption, all of that has been covered in an exhaustive fashion in the previous 11 classes so far. Today being the 12th class, we will continue with this initiative that StudyIQ IAS English has come up with specifically for all those who are going to be writing civil services prelims in 9 days from now. Good evening, Anup. Good to see you back. Good to see you back. So this has been the order of the day. This has been the brief intro for this special revision series. Once again, for those of you who are joining us for the first time in this particular series, may I inform you that, well, this has been our journey so far. This was the intro class where I explained to you the mindset of the commission, my analysis of the questions that are asked, how can you improve your reading comprehension, what are the things that you need to look out for, and what is the basic methodology of preparation for reading comprehension. Thereafter, we have gone into and dived straight into the kind of questions that are asked. So you have identification of central idea, thereafter tones. Again, I cannot overstress this. Tones is an underappreciated part of any student's preparation. I don't see many students, especially those who are going to appear this year, I don't see many of those students able to identify the tone of the passage, whereas UPSC in the previous years has asked underlying tone of the passage to be identified by the student. So again, if that's a new concept for you, if that is something you do not know about, may I suggest go through part number 3 and part number 4, where we have discussed tones exhaustively to the point that you should be able to tackle any question that the commission throws at you. Thereafter, all the questions that are so commonly and frequently asked by the commission. So you have assumption and inference and corollary, conclusion, all of those terms that all seem the same but mean completely different things. Well, that has been discussed here. Thereafter, we have done questions, and now in the past 3-4 classes, ideally from class number 9 onwards, what we have started doing is, hi Dukhiram Sarkar, namaskar, good evening. So what we have done is essentially tackled the previous year questions, year on year wise. So we have completed 14, 15, 16. Today we are going to be tackling the questions for the year 2017. Okay. Now let me inform you, 2017 was a difficult year for reading comprehension. I remember students coming back after the examination and literally being flabbergasted, saying, my God, it was difficult. Why? Because you had a number of passages. Essentially what the commission did was 4-5 line passages and thereafter followed by one single question. And you had around roughly 15 questions like that. 15 passages followed by 15 questions, which eventually meant that you needed to have a certain reading speed. Hi Mallikarjun, welcome. Good to see you back. Good to see you guys. Okay, so reading speed was important. At the same time, you needed to have comprehension ability too, right? However, the only saving grace for the year 2017 was that the questions were relatively moderate. They were not very difficult to understand. Okay, so we are going to try and understand and see the questions from 2017 and what exactly could you have done differently or should you be doing differently if those typical type of questions are repeated in this year, in 2023, right? So I don't want to waste much time because again, but then this is necessary for anyone who's joining us for the first time. Well, that has been the overview of our journey so far. I intend on carrying on this particular series up until the 28th of May. And I'll strive to make sure that we discuss all the questions that are asked on that particular day, and we'll also discuss the answers, the strategies that you could have employed so that you can maximize your score insofar as reading comprehension is concerned. Having said that, let's dive in straight to the questions for the day. Again, like I told you, most of the questions today, in fact, all of the questions today are from the 2017 CSP. Beginning with this one, we shall start with this first. What climate change will undeniably do is cause or amplify events that hasten the reduction of resources. So essentially, they speed up. Hastening is to fasten up, to speed up. Okay? But then again, please understand there are two different meanings here. Okay? So what I told you was, let me get the white ink. This will be better. Okay. So what I told you was to fasten it up. Please understand, this does not mean to speed it up. This means to tie it. Tie something. Fasten your seat belt. Tie your seat belt. Fasten your lace. Tie your laces. Okay? So this essentially is to do with the point that it is essentially asking us to speed it up. Okay? So it speeds up the reduction of resources. Competition over those diminishing resources would ensue in the form of political or even violent conflict. So you have these resources and eventually you will have people fighting over it, which will take a political shape, which will have a political connotation to it. What would ensue mean? Ensue essentially means to follow. Okay? To follow. It'll happen as a result, as a consequence. Okay? Violence ensued after the inflammatory speech by the politician, which means violence followed after the inflammatory speech. The speech was full of rhetoric. It was divisive in nature, and hence there was violence that followed after the completion of the speech. Okay, so that's ensuing. So, diminishing resources would ensue in the form of political or even violent conflict. Resource-based conflicts have rarely been overt and are difficult thus to isolate. Instead, they take on veneers, forms. It means forms, shapes. It metamorphoses into something else. So eventually, prima facie, it might look like it's a resource problem, but then it will take up many forms. That struggle will take up many forms that appear more politically palatable. Palate is the taste. So politically palatable, politically justifiable. Okay? Palate, you have a color palette also. You have a taste palette also. Right? So it's taste, essentially to do with the different hues. Okay? Conflicts over resources like water are often cloaked in the guise of identity or ideology. This is the operative line, guys. I always tell you, look for the operative line of the passage. All of this is noise. Forget it. What's the operative line? The operative line begins from here. From this place till this place. Essentially summarizing the passage for you. That such conflicts over resources normally are cloaked in the guise of identity or ideology. So you have, say, two states, okay, and then say state X and state Y. Now a river flows between them. So obviously the river brings resources with it. Now they are going to fight over the custody of the river, for example. However, they can't explicitly say and go out to the public and say, you know what, we are going to fight for the river. Why? Because it's going to do this, do that. No. What they are going to say is they are going to bring up other facets. They are going to divide the people and it will be cloaked in the form of something else. It will be cloaked essentially cloak is essentially a topi type thing you wear. Okay? What we call in Hindi is choga. Right? So it's going to be cloaked. It's going to be dressed up as something else. What something else? Well, indeed, in the form of identity politics or ideology. So you see what the author has done here? He's quickly made a correlation between climate change, resources, and then the political connotation to it. The structure of the argument by the author. If you're able to identify that algorithm I always tell you, be scientific in the way you approach a passage. Never go by your gut instinct. Gut instinct is zero. Zero usage in reading comprehension. So this is the structure that we know. Now let's look at the question very quickly. What does the above passage imply? Imply. What is it trying to say? What is it trying to communicate to us? What's the point that he's trying to make, the author? Right? So, number one, resource-based conflicts are always politically motivated. B, there are no political solutions to resolve environmental and resource-based conflicts. C, environmental issues contribute to resource stresses and political conflict. D, political conflict based on identity or ideology cannot be resolved. Can I have some answers? Let's see. Let's see what would your answer be. After I've given you the explanation for the passage, see what the author is trying to say now. Number one, resource-based conflicts are always politically motivated. Are they? Are they? Is that what the author is trying to imply here? Let me delete this all first. Right, let's look at this. Is he trying to say in this passage that all resource-based conflicts are only due to political ideology? Not really. What he's trying to say? That they can take on those forms, which means there might be other forms. Right? Veneers. See? Instead, they take on such forms that appear more politically palatable, which means there could be other forms that such resource-based conflicts can take over or take up. Right? Okay. Mallikarjun says C. Let's see. Let's see. B. There are no political... So obviously, we can discount it out. This is obviously wrong for sure. We can agree on that, class. B. There are no political solutions to resolve environmental and resource-based conflicts. Obviously, he is not making this point. He is not even talking about the solution bit. He is saying what leads to it and what forms and shapes it takes. So this talks about the future. And essentially, this no gives it away. It's quite an easy way to discount it out. So wrong. D. Political conflicts based on identity or ideology cannot be resolved. How would we know again? It's talking about the future. Right? So obviously, Mallikarjun is correct. Again, if you answered C, you're bang on. You're going to make sure that you get your 2.5 for this question. Plus 2.5 for sure. Now, a small tip here. Many times students will ask, tips and tricks should be told to them on how to approach paper. One good ground rule for solving reading comprehension is never assume information that is not given in the passage. Don't do that. Limit your understanding to what has the author said only. At no point he's spoken about the possible solutions to resource-based conflict or what would happen in the future. He's just saying this is what happens. So, obviously C is correct. Issues contribute to resource stresses and political conflict. Right? Quite easy, this one. So this is how you're going to approach. Negate the option one by one. Look at the author's point of view and then come to the closest option. Right? Okay, we'll move forward. We'll do the next one now. Passage 2. Let's look at this, guys. I'll just keep shut for 2 minutes. Let you guys soak in the passage first. Okay, let's look at the passage now. The man who is perpetually hesitating which of the two things he'll do first will do neither. Perpetually, consistently, continuously. Okay, continuously. Continuously plus consistently. Okay. Will do neither. The man who resolves but suffers his resolution to be changed by the first counter suggestion of a friend, who fluctuates from opinion to opinion and veers from plan to plan, can never accomplish anything. Veers from plan to plan, fluctuates from opinion to opinion. He will at best be stationary and probably retrograde in all. It is only the man who first consults, then resolves, and then executes with inflexible perseverance, undismayed by those opinions, which daunt a weaker spirit that can advance to eminence in any line. What is the author trying to say, guys? Very quickly, I'll tell you a small story, okay? Small story. Not much time because I don't want to waste time before prelims. That's not an option here. But very small story to understand. So when I was preparing for the civil services, I had a roommate. Okay, let's call him, for example, B. I don't want to name him. So his name was B. Now this fellow, in the first week when he came, he was all in the mood that I'm going to crack civil services. I am going to become an IS, IPS, IRS, whatever. IFS, whatever he wanted to be. Then he bought all the books, everything came, all the material came. Within 7 days, I meet him and I ask him, so how is your prep going? How is it all going? And then he suddenly tells me, you know what, I met this individual. And then he told me, you know what, CSAT mein, UPSC mein kya rakha hai? What is there in UPSC? It's a boring examination, no scope in life. You'll be doing a government job at the end of the day. So he said he was going to prepare for GMAT now. So within 1 week, he went from UPSC to GMAT. Thereafter, I met him after again, like a couple of months. Obviously, he was not a very close buddy. But then I met him again after a couple of months. So I asked him, so what's up? How's your GMAT going now? He was like, no, GMAT mein bhi kuch nahi rakha hai. GMAT ka fees, the fees of GMAT is too high. The return of investment is too high. There's no point. So I'm going to appear for CAT now. The author is essentially talking about individuals such as this. Individuals who will sway from branch to branch and tree to tree with no stability of the head. Okay. So those people are not going to succeed. Who is going to succeed? Well, the author says, someone who first consults, then resolves, and then executes. What does resolve mean? It's a national resolve to eradicate poverty. What does it mean? That it's a national commitment. We have made up our mind. That's what resolve means. I have resolved to study well for the forthcoming examination. It's my resolve that I will score, say, all questions in reading comprehension correct. Resolve, commitment, you have made up your mind. So that's what the author is saying. Rather than swinging from branch to branch and examination to examination and plan to plan, no. Steady your mind, first consult, gather information, then make up your mind, and then execute. Right? Let's look at the questions now. Question here. The keynote that seems to be emerging from the passage. What's keynote? What does keynote mean? So, for example, you had recently the Raisina dialogue, no guys? You must have heard of this. The Raisina dialogue that happened in New Delhi. So, you'll have probably say the Honorable Prime Minister. He will deliver the keynote address. Right? So, what would keynote mean? The central address, the main address. You know, the address that's going to be the agenda of the discussion that everyone wants to listen to. Similarly, in this sense, what does keynote mean? The central idea. Like I have told you, UPSC's favorite question. If not anything, as soon as you read a passage, straight away form a central idea in your head. If you're finding it difficult to do it in English, do it in your native language. Whichever language you're comfortable with. Nepali, Bengali, Kannada, whatever. Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, whatever is your language. Try and summarize it in simple words, 1 or 2 lines in your native language. That's what the author is telling about, like I told you the whole story. Can I explain the last 2 lines? Sure, Mallikarjun, 100%. Let's look at the line now. Let's look at it. From here I'll explain, yeah? Okay, we'll do this. So it is only the man who first consults, then resolves, and then executes. Consults, what would consult mean? Consult is essentially to speak, to gather information. So for example, before UPSC preparation, you would have consulted, say, people who would have prepared earlier, or people who would have gotten selected, or teachers who would be teaching. You would have gone on online forums to check what's the syllabus, what's the kind of questions that are asked. This is the process of consultation. You go to a doctor for consultation. You gather information. Okay, I have fever, 104 or 103. So what should I do? Diagnose the problem for me. That's consultation. Gathering information is the process of consultation. So the author is saying, first you gather information, then you make up your mind, have a commitment, have a motivation. That's necessary. And then finally, after you have done these two prerequisites, then you come to the executing. Then you go ahead and execute your plans. See, first consultation, then resolve, then execution. This is the author's point of view. What does he say after that? With inflexible perseverance, single-minded focus. Once you have started your project, don't waver. Don't be like, nahi, it's not working out. Stick to it. Go at it. Commit yourself to it. Okay? So, inflexible perseverance, undismayed by those petty difficulties. Undismayed? That you don't have an off day. You don't feel bad about it. You're not, dismay is essentially flabbergasted. So undismayed means essentially that you are not unperturbed. Nothing affects you. Okay? Petty issues here, there, they don't bother you at all. You have already made up your mind. Like the Arjuna's bow, no? That he tir chalaya tha unhone. So you are like that. You're just looking at the target. You're not looking at all the distractions by the side. So you're undismayed by petty difficulties, which daunt a weaker spirit, which means which would overwhelm someone who hasn't gone through this process of consultation, resolve, and execution. A weaker spirit, like I gave you the example of my friend. A weaker spirit, first UPSC, then GMAT, then CAT. No focus, no perseverance, no plan. So that would daunt a weaker spirit that can advance to eminence. I would invite the eminent guests to now proceed towards the lounge. Eminent, people of high standing, high intellectual standing, moral standing. Okay? Normally not used for people with financial standing. Okay? Religious standing, spiritual standing. So you will have, say, the Pope who will be addressed as His Eminence. Okay? Or say Dalai Lama, he is addressed as His Holiness, which is essentially His Eminence. Yeah? You are putting him on a pedestal, that he is a person of some standing, spiritual, religious, intellectual, moral, whatever. You are putting him at a higher pedestal. That's eminence. So the keynote address now. The central idea is what we have to identify here. Great. Let's look at it now. Number one, we should first consult wisely and then resolve firmly. Okay? Consult wisely and resolve firmly. Consult wisely and resolve firmly. Okay? B, we should reject suggestions of friends and remain unchanged. Well, of course, the author is saying that you should not be swayed by the opinion of your friends, who today might tell you, ki, do UPSC. Tomorrow they'll tell you, what is there in UPSC? If you want Delhi posting, do SSC. Then third day, they'll tell you, you know what, state service is better. Fourth day, no, PSU is better. What UPSC to PSC? Let's go for PSUs. So see how he's going to quickly not really give you stability of advice. So you will be affected by that advice. So he's saying, yes, don't reject suggestions, keep them, but do what's essentially important for you. So this is not exactly the central idea. The central idea has to do something with this. You see, this process that the author is asking to you to do. First consult, then resolve, then execute. C, we should always remain broad-minded. What has that got to do with consultation or execution? You could be narrow-minded, who cares? As long as you follow this process. It has got nothing to do with broad-minded or narrow-minded, firstly. This is again a vague option. Okay? What is a broad-minded person? Someone who is forward in his thinking, accommodative in his thinking, someone who is liberal in their thinking. Who is a narrow-minded person? As you say in Hindi, choti soch. Someone who is probably not very forward-looking. You know, someone who is a victim of dogma and not a rational person. What does dogma mean? What would dogma mean, guys? I have told you this before in this series, dogma versus rationality. Very quickly, if I were to explain this to you, rationality essentially means that if you have a particular point of view and I present in front of you some evidence that contravenes or negates whatever you think, and then you take in that evidence and you say, yes, correct, you have a point. And then you change your opinion after that. That's rationality. That's a rational person. Someone who is willing to change their thoughts in the face of true evidence. That's rationality. Whereas dogma, so you have someone who will say, you know what, climate change is all hoax. Yeah, it is some Illuminati project. They'll bark off, they'll say off. Yeah. Then you say, you know what, this is the IPCC report here. Then this is the report by United Nations. This is the report by, say, CSR, whatever. 50 organizations reports you put in front of them. They say, you know what, this is all fake news. This doesn't work like that. A victim of dogma. Someone who is not willing to accept true evidence and then change their outlook or approach. Okay? So, this is obviously a very vague idea that has been put here. C definitely can't be my answer. D, we should be resolute and achievement oriented. Well, we should be resolute, but then achievement oriented? What about the process of consultation? Is that not what author has said? The central idea? Yes? So, what's my answer here then? We should first consult wisely and then resolve firmly. Consult wisely, then resolve firmly. And only then start a project. Right? Should be clear. Should be clear. That's how we are approaching. See how I'm doing. For every question, I'm making sure that I have a relationship link in place. Extremely important, guys. Try and break the passage. If you're a student of maths in a mathematical equation, I know students who would probably use Venn diagrams to solve RC questions and they got it correct. It's essentially about segregating the central idea from the other noise in the passage. That's all you have to do. Especially when you're asked, say, identify the central idea. Identify the keynote. Different names UPSC will throw at you. Essentially meaning the same. Identify the central idea. Okay? Okay, we'll move forward. We'll move forward now. If you have any doubts, guys, please feel free. Okay? Please feel free. Shoot me a question in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay, it's my job to answer. I'm here on this fine hot evening here in New Delhi only so that I can resolve your doubts ahead of the last 9 days. 18th being today, 27th is still you should complete your doubts. 28th, wake up and go at it. Go at the paper like you mean business. Yes? For that, you need to be armed with these kind of things. You can't be using gut feeling when you have to solve RC questions. Then you wouldn't be meaning business. Okay? Alright, we'll move forward. Next, third passage. Have a look, guys. Have a look. Okay. During the summer in the Arctic Ocean, sea ice has been melting earlier and faster, and the winter freeze has been coming later. So, summer has become longer and winter has become shorter. See, this is what he's saying. Quickly, the moment you get information like that, write it in one word here. Sea ice has been melting earlier and faster, and the winter freeze has been coming later. Why would the sea melt earlier? Which means the summer has come early. The summer has come fast. Okay. In the last 3 decades, in the last 30 years, the extent of summer ice has declined by about 30%. The lengthening period of summer, see, the author confirms what we wrote earlier. That summer's position, the summer's duration has increased now and winter has become shorter. So the lengthening period of summer melt threatens to undermine the whole Arctic food web, atop which stand the polar bears. Please understand, he's talking about Arctic food web, which includes polar bears. Okay? Why is that happening? Why is this particular animal at threat? Because summer has become shorter. Summer has become longer and winter has become shorter, as a consequence of which you have lesser ice. See, the summer ice has declined. Quickly identify the cause-effect relationship. I have always told you, the cause-effect relationship will help you solve questions where UPSC has this habit of, say, 3 different relationships being built in a paragraph. This caused this, that caused that, then this caused something else. Quickly identify the cause-effect relationship. Okay? Now let's look at the questions. If this is clear, if the passage is clear, then we go on to the question. Which among the following is the most crucial message? Crucial message, essentially, same central idea. What's the author's central idea? See how UPSC twists the same thing again and again and again. Sometimes it becomes keynote. Sometimes it becomes crucial message. Sometimes it becomes central idea, central theme, whatever. Idea is essentially that you have to identify the central message of the author. What exactly is his point that he's trying to make? So number 1, climate change has caused Arctic summer to be short, but temperature to be high. Let's go back. Summer is longer. We know that for sure. That's a fact of the passage, which means factually incorrect. Okay? Factually incorrect statement. Summer is not being short. Summer is getting longer. Okay? B. Polar bears can be shifted to South Pole to ensure their survival. Okay, we'll have a look at this. C. Without the presence of polar bears, the food chains in the Arctic region will disappear. Fine. D. Climate change poses a threat to the survival of polar bears. Clearly, the answer has to be between these 3. Let's see. Can someone tell me the answer for this very quickly? Guys, we have a sizable number of people watching. Let's see. What would be the answer here? Polar bears can be shifted to South Pole to ensure their survival. Where is it written here? That you shift them to South Pole and then they'll survive. Where is it written? It's talking about Arctic Ocean, right? The North Pole it's talking about. It's talking about the Arctic food web, atop which stands the polar bears. There's no sense of South Pole here. Like I told you, you will not introduce any new idea on your own side, from your own side. Don't do that. Stick to what the author has said only. The author is talking about Arctic, which means North Pole. Why bring in South Pole unnecessarily? Simple. Straight away. Thank you, but no thank you. C. Without the presence of polar bears, the food chain in Arctic region will disappear. Let's go back here. It threatens to undermine the Arctic food web, atop which stand polar bears. Atop which? At the top of which. You guys know na, the food chain is something like this. The whole relationship. So here the polar bears stand. How would we know whether the food chain, if they disappear, the presence of polar bears will be compromised? Where has it been said? It threatens to undermine. Undermine essentially means to, it threatens to basically cause harm. Threatens to cause harm to the Arctic food web, atop which stand polar bears. Cause harm. Possibility of causing harm, which will probably threaten the polar bears. Again, no direct relationship is being built here. Sorry, but no. D. Climate change poses a threat to the survival of polar bears. Look at this. Poses a threat. What is it saying? Of possibility. It's explaining a possibility here. Right? Exactly what the passage is telling me about. That yes, they are threatened. And why are they threatened? Because summers are becoming longer, ice is less, winter is coming at a later time, winter is short, which means the food chain there will be disturbed and eventually it might threaten the polar bear. Simple. D. Good. Good answer. Malikarjun Dukhiram. Well done. बहुत बढ़िया. Good. Thumbs up from my side. Absolutely correct. This is the answer. See, this is how you have to draw linkages in the passage, guys. Never assume, never go by gut feeling. Okay? We'll move forward to the next one. Let's look at this, guys. Passage number 4. Why do people prefer open defecation and not want toilets? Or, if they have them, only use them sometimes? Recent research has shown two critical elements. Okay. Number 1, the idea of purity, and number 2, pollution. And not wanting pits or septic tanks to fill. Why? Because they have to be emptied. These are the issues that nobody wants to talk about. But if we want to eradicate the practice of open defecation, they have to be confronted and dealt properly. Straight up. Very simple passage. Why are people not using the toilets that have been built? Because the septic tanks need to be emptied. So people are like, it's an impure place. And at the same time, it will cause pollution. Right? Where will they dispose of the waste material? Right? These two aspects only. Let's move on to the question now. Which among the following is the most crucial message? Again, the central idea of the author. See, 2017 UPSC, moderate to difficult, but most of the questions, straight away, identify central idea, identify central idea, identify central idea. And these were the years when actually not a lot of information was available to students. Nowadays, you guys are at an advantage. And in fact, the teachers are also at an advantage since UPSC has released a sizable number of question papers. So you know exactly the trend, the mind of the UPSC, how it shifts from every year to every year. So you can safely assume in 2023 also that central idea will remain a focus area for UPSC. You will have 2 to 3 questions for sure, where you will be quickly asked to identify central idea. So for this question, let's look at it. The ideas of purity and pollution are so deep-rooted that they cannot be removed from the minds of the people. What does deep-rooted mean? What does deep-rooted mean? So entrenched. It is so, they have imbibed it to such an extent that they cannot get out of it. Okay? We'll leave it. We'll come back to this. Fine. B. People have to perceive toilet use and pit emptying as clean and not polluting. Okay? C. People cannot change their old habits. You can straight away say no. It's a definite statement that it is saying. How can we assume? How can we with full confidence say that people cannot change their habits? Yes? Yes, toilets were built, but they still don't use it. But then they have a justifiable reason for that. Which means that needs to be addressed, and then people will be happy to break their old habits. So this is wrong. D. People have neither civic sense nor sense of privacy. Again, you can straight away discount it out. It's got nothing to do, the passage has nothing to do with privacy or civic sense. Of course, it does talk about usages of, say, bathrooms, washrooms. But then this is you attributing your own bias to the people. There's a justifiable reason why they're not using it. So let's look at the answer then. Let's look at the answer. We have Malika who said B. Dukhiram has said B. Good. Good. Absolutely correct, guys. B is the answer. People have to perceive toilet use and pit emptying as clean and not polluting. Right? Why not A? Why not A? Because it often says, that they cannot be removed from the minds of the people. Again, it's essentially saying this only. How can we say it cannot be removed? It can be. There could be some way forward. What is the way forward for once? Well, you tell people that, you know what, it's a clean thing. It's a clean procedure. It gives you dignity, or of all of those things that come with using a washroom. Yeah? Straight up. Simple. Which means your answer here is B. Mallikarjun and Dukhiram. Bang on. Good. Good stuff. Okay, we'll move forward. Let's look at 5, guys. Have a look at this, please. In the last 2 decades, the world's GDP has increased by 50%, whereas inclusive wealth has grown by just 6%. Inclusive wealth has just grown by 6%. In recent decades, GDP-driven economic performance has only harmed inclusive wealth, like human capital and natural capital like forests. So he's talking about 2 kinds of capital, human capital and natural capital. Forest, land, water. Okay, fine. While the world's human capital, which stands at 57% of the total inclusive wealth, grew by only 8%, the natural capital, which is 23%, declined worldwide in the last 2 decades. Essentially, the passage straight away says that you are exploiting the natural resources. Okay, we have done a passage yesterday. Yesterday only we did, in fact, the last class, okay, class number 11. We did a question where the author is speaking about growth versus development. Growth versus development. That was again the passage that was asked in 2016. Same passage, same theme. UPSC has just reframed the passage a little bit. Just by a little bit. And I'll tell you what, these type of passages are the Commission's favorite. They love passages on agriculture, sustainable development, growth versus development, okay, philosophy. Why? Because these passages have connotations and different meanings and different interpretations. They require you to be quick on the feet. The UPSC, the Commission knows that you will not be studying a lot of these subjects, at least imbibing the different facets of these subjects. You will know what sustainable development is, or SDG goals are, 2030 tak kya karna hai. You will know all of that. But if you are to given a passage, it will be problematic for you. So the Commission knows that. So straight away, this is what he's talking about, that you're exploiting your natural resources, and to the point that it has declined by 30% worldwide. Let's look at the question now. Inference. What is the crucial inference? What is the takeaway the author is giving you? What is his message that he's asking you or informing you of? What is his point? Okay, what are you supposed to infer from this passage? Let's look at number 1. More emphasis should be laid on the development of natural capital. Okay. B. The growth driven by GDP only is neither sustainable nor desirable. Okay. The economic performance of the countries of the world is not satisfactory. I think this can be safely discounted out. Because our idea here is that we are talking about natural wealth versus, say, the wealth. Okay. Look at it. Whatever is talking about, GDP versus natural wealth. Let's just delete, I'll just delete this for you. He's talking about GDP, which includes natural wealth plus human wealth. So this obviously can be discounted out. He is not talking about the economic performance of countries. Whether it is satisfactory, excellent, mediocre, who knows? Who cares? Okay? D. The world needs more human capital under the present circumstances. Okay. World needs more human capital. What about natural? What about the natural wealth? Straight up no. So, here also, you have natural capital plus HR, no? Human resources also spoken about. So, this can also be discounted out, which means this. The growth driven by GDP only is neither desirable nor sustainable, which means there needs to be something else, which is natural wealth and human wealth. You need to be having the GDP driven by these two and not just GDP. Once again, good answers, guys. Mallikarjun and Dukhiram, excellent. Brilliant answers. See, this particular word here, guys, the only itself is the one that determines the answer. What does it mean? That you just don't need GDP, you also need natural wealth. You also need human wealth. Suppose if you had an option here that GDP growth is bad, that sense, would you mark it? No. He's not saying that GDP growth is bad. He's saying, yes, okay, you need to have growth driven by GDP, but at the same time, you need to invest in your human resource. You need to invest in your natural resource. You can't have a situation where it's declining by 30%. It's just not sustainable. Imagine if something was 100 and it's declined by 70%, 30% means it's at 70. It's showing a downward trend. Eventually, you're going to reach a point where it's going to be zero. It's not desirable or sustainable. That's what he's asking us to do. Okay? Fine. We'll do the next one. Let's look at this, guys. I think this passage is about what? Demographic dividend. Have a look. Have a look at this one. Yeah, this is the demographic dividend passage. Have a look at this. By 2020, when the global economy is expected to run short of 56 million young people, run short, deficit of 56 million young people, India with its youth surplus could fill the gap. It is in this context that labor reforms are often cited as the way to unblock double-digit growth in India. In 2014, India's labor force was estimated to be at 40%, but 93% was in the unorganized sector. Over the last decade, the CAGR has slowed down to 0.5%, with about 14 million jobs created. Labor force increased by 15 million. What is CAGR? You must be knowing, no? It's the compounded annual growth. Yeah, it's a business concept essentially. So whenever you look at a particular entity, business entity, okay, you look at the CAGR essentially to look at what's the kind of growth. Is it compoundable growth? Is it increasing at a consistent rate, or is it just 1 year there was growth, second year there was stagnation, and third year it closed down? So that's what he's speaking about. That Indian labor reforms are necessary so that you can unlock double-digit growth in India and then probably contribute to this gap that is filling up in the world stage. If that's the central idea, we have identified it. Moving on to the question. The inference by the author. Have a look and let me know, guys. Let me know the answer here. India must control its population growth so as to reduce its unemployment rate. Is the author speaking about population growth? What about labor reforms? He so explicitly said that labor reforms are needed if India is to unlock double-digit growth in India. Where is the labor reforms sense here? ठीक है? B. Labor reforms are required in India to make optimum use of its vast labor force productively. ठीक है? C. India is poised to achieve the double-digit growth very soon. Again, how would we know this? How would we know? We have to, what has the author said here? Look at it. He's often said that labor reforms are often cited as the way to unblock double-digit growth. जब reforms ही नहीं आएगा, तो कहाँ से हम बोल सकते हैं कि it is very soon? How can we say for sure? First, you need labor reforms, no? For this to hold true. So obviously this is incorrect. This is also incorrect. D. India is capable of supplying the skilled young people to other countries. But where is the labor reforms? This will be effect if labor reforms are introduced. So essentially this is the answer. Labor reforms are required to make optimum use, the best use of the vast labor force productively. Good, Mallikarjun and Dukhiram. सर मुझे यूपीएससी में कौन सा मीडियम लेना चाहिए? मैं अभी तक 12th मेडिकल से कंप्लीट किया 92% इंग्लिश मीडियम से. Which medium? Okay, I'll tell you something, Suman. So firstly, it's again a very large discussion, but go through the previous year's papers first. Are you able to understand the questions in Hindi? And do you think you will be able to answer those questions in Hindi? Look at the mains paper. Okay? If your Hindi is good enough, only then look at the availability of subject. That would be the scientific way to approach this. Okay? Ideally, I would suggest, again, if you have done from English medium, stick to English medium. But then that's completely your call. My suggestion would be have a scientific analysis first. Look at the mains paper and look at your own ability to answer those questions. Would you be comfortable with sustainable development or probably something, the Hindi term for it? You know, I'm not aware of the Hindi term, but things like that. Are you able to write fluently in Hindi expressing that thought? Okay, that is necessary. So what I would suggest is look at the paper first. Look at the mains paper and look at how you would try to probably answer those questions in the language of your preference. If not, stick to English. Take care, Suman. Fine. Okay, we'll move forward. This is obviously correct, guys. Labor reforms. Cause effect again, see. If labor reforms are introduced, then double-digit growth will happen. Then India will go and fill the gap in the global stage where 50 million people are required, this, that, all of that nonsense. Okay? Okay, Mallikarjun has a question. What is the last 7-day strategy of preparation and mental health before prelims? Oh, this is a very good question, Mallikarjun. Especially the second part of your question, the mental health. That is extremely important. I can empathize with the situation of the students who are appearing or who are in the last 7 days. I completely understand. One thing you should do is don't stress out. You know, one thing I've learned on the course of the last half a decade mentoring students, and then just generally over the course of my life, the person who can keep cool here will do well. Just learn from Dhoni now. Yeah, see how he approaches his whole thing. Just very cool, calm. Preparation should be 100%. Yeah, don't go in that false notion that only coolness and calmness will help me. No, you obviously need a comprehensive way of preparation, but go with a cool outset. Eventually, you know what, Mallikarjun? In the long run, failures don't matter. Okay, you might clear UPSC, you may not clear UPSC, but I've told you that this phase of your life will enrich you as an individual. So think from that point of view. Don't take pressure that, oh my God, I have to score 120, 130. Don't put limitations on yourself before the examination. Last 7 days, sleep on time. I've told so many students, sleep on time and make sure that in this slot, 9:30 to 11:30 and 2:30 to 4:30, you're solving papers. In this particular time slots, 9:30 to 11:30 and 2:30 to 4:30. What students do is sometimes after lunch, they'll sleep after 2 p.m. Don't do that. It's a cardinal mistake. In these 4 hours, you should be at your best. You should be studying like intense studying or solving of papers. Why? Because there's something called a brain cycle, a circadian cycle, of how your brain is functioning at your maximum, at its optimum. So that has to be inculcated. So that should have ideally been done, say, a month prior also. But it's still not too late. At least don't be sleeping in the afternoons. Have meals on time and relax. It's okay. Your preparation is more or less done. Revise. Don't touch anything new right now. Okay, listen to music. Keep 1 hour for yourself wherein you just unwind. Yeah, that's necessary. Otherwise, see, I'll tell you what. If you go in with the stress that, oh my God, I'm appearing for UPSC, this, that. Anyways, you lost half the battle here. Go in with the thing that, you know what, this paper is going to come and I'm going to go at it. Like Hindi mein kehte na, cheer phad dunga. I'm going to go at the paper. This is my personal battle and we'll see who comes out victorious. Go in with that intensity. Yeah. Don't just go in thinking, ki, Arey, what is the cutoff? What is not going to be the cutoff? Who cares? Your output should be so much that you are far ahead of the cutoff. Yeah. Cutoff is for those who are not well prepared. If you're well prepared, you'll think like, I'm going to go at the paper and do my level best. Which helps. Trust me, it helps. If you're calm here, you are going to look out for these words that people often miss. Only, some, all. An agitated mind will overlook these words. A calm mind will be able to rationally look at every option and say, you know what? This is wrong because of this word. Okay? So do that. Do that. Fine. Well, I do have 6 minutes, so we can do one more question very quickly. Right. Let's move on. Let's do this one, guys. I have told you the answer to this, no? This one, okay? B. B is the answer for this. Let's look at this very quickly. Okay. The very first lesson that should be taught to us when we are old enough to understand it is that complete freedom from the obligation to work is unnatural and ought to be illegal, as we can escape our share of the burden of work only by throwing it on someone else's shoulders. Long line, which can essentially be summarized in one line saying no one wants to work, no one likes to work, okay? Given an option, everyone probably would like to chill. But then the author is saying that you can only escape your share of hard work, which will have to be done by someone else, okay? Nature ordains, or nature desires, or nature orders us that the human race shall perish of famine if it stops working. We cannot escape from this tyranny. The question we have to settle is how much leisure we can afford. So the author says that you have to work if you want to eat. You cannot escape the tyranny of working. Okay? And you have to calibrate how much of free time, how much of chilling, and how much of Netflix, and how much of hard work. Okay? That's all that he's saying. That you cannot escape hard work. Eventually, your part of the hard work will have to be done by someone else if the human race has to survive. Tick? That is the central idea of the passage. Hard work plus survival of the human race. He's linked these two connotations. Theek ache? We'll move forward. The main idea, see, 2017 paper. Central idea was asked in close to 13 to 14 questions in different ways altogether. Imagine, that's roughly how many marks waiting for you, free marks. Yeah, 14 questions into 2.5, 30 odd marks, 35 odd marks, free. Lay out, take it and go, as he says. Okay? Number one, it is essential for the human beings to work. B, there should be a balance between work and leisure. C, working is tyranny which we have to face. D, humans' understanding of the nature of work is essential. What would be the answer, guys? Let's see. Let's have the answers. Suman, Malikarjun, Dukhiram. Bataiye answer iska. What is the central idea of the passage? Like I told you, the author is speaking about hard work and survival. Is he not speaking about that? That you need to work, human race needs to work so as to survive. If you do not work, there will be food shortage. So, is he speaking about balance between work and leisure? No. He's saying forget balance. Essentially, you have to work and then get food on your table. Okay? So, some might say that the last line, no? How much leisure we can afford to allow ourselves. This is not the main idea of the passage, guys. Okay? Please understand this. Very quickly, if I have to explain it to you, the central idea of the passage is between hard work and survival, whereas the ancillary idea is about the balance between hard work and leisure. See? This is what's necessary for you to quickly identify. ठीक है? Quickly identify this. This part is the ancillary idea. Mallikarjun and Dukhiram, have a look. This is the ancillary idea. That balance portion, no, is coming later. What he's saying, that human work, that work is inescapable. You have to work. Look at this line here. Sorry. Look at this line here. We can escape our share of the burden by throwing it on someone else's work. Nature ordains that human race shall perish of famine if it stops working. Which means all these lines here from this part, he's essentially saying that you cannot escape work. Hard work is essential. That's what he's saying. Okay? Which is why this is an ancillary idea, guys. The balance that he's talking about is ancillary. The balance that he's talking about is ancillary. Okay? Look at C now. Working is a tyranny which we have to face. Of course, working is tyranny. Tyranny is something that is, if you have seen Game of Thrones, there was this King Joffrey who was tyrannical, oppressive. You know, someone who enjoys, draws sadistic pleasure out of other people's miseries. Yeah? King Joffrey was a tyrannical ruler. Or you say, you learn in history, you have Aurangzeb and this and that names are thrown around as tyrannical rulers. So they were all oppressive to the population. So obviously this is again an ancillary idea. He's spoken about the tyranny bit, but then that's not the central idea. The central idea is about human survival and hard work. D, humans' understanding of the nature of work is essential. Again, it's vague. There's no sense what understanding and what essential you're talking about and what nature of work. Straight away is saying hard work is essential for survival. Okay? Okay, so the answer here is A. Essential for human beings to work. Yes, Karthik, tell me. Oh, Karthik, that depends completely on your grad subject. Okay? Have a look first at the grad syllabus, mains ka syllabus dekhiye aap. Thereafter, figure out whether you'd be comfortable attempting those questions. Look at the mains paper. Okay? You don't need a particular option to become any officer. Your rank decides the service that you get. Eventually, you have to score well in your mains to get a prelims call. So I would suggest look at the optional paper of your grad subject. Thereafter, consult students, teachers, peers. There are a host of optionals that you can choose. There are some popular optionals that people think are scoring. But then again, it's completely at your discretion. However, I suggest make an informed decision first. Go through the mains optional papers. सबसे पहले तो ये करिए आप. If you're appearing for next year, go through the mains optional papers and see the kind of questions that are asked from your graduation subject. If you have done, say, in engineering, go through the mechanical engineering paper. Look at it. Are you able to understand it? Are you able to completely able to answer it to the best of your ability? Does it even make sense to you, the question paper first? Can you recall what you had studied in second year, first year, third year, fourth year? Okay. If not, then look at the other options. Geography, PubAd, this, that, anthropology, sociology, there are hundreds of logies. Okay. Look at the syllabus. You can't just randomly pick a subject and hope to master it. You need to have a basic interest. Like I was an engineer. I am an engineer, in fact. But I love geography. So even when I'm not studying the optional, I find myself reading geography articles here and there. I love international relations. I find myself often drawn to topics on international relations. Yeah. So I know I have above average information when it comes to these two subjects. Obviously, geography is my first love because I've studied that in detail. So that's how that worked for me. What will work for you is completely different. ठीक है? Okay. Graduation from English honors. तो हाँ, English का एक बार देखो आप. Have a look at the English syllabus. Whether you are comfortable in the kind of English questions, classical English, postmodern, जो भी पूछा होगा. I'm not aware of the syllabus of English, but have a look at the subject first. Have a look at the paper. Are you comfortable with that? Because from my understanding is that you have done BA, whereas questions are normally asked of the MA level, right? So you'll probably be overwhelmed by the first time you look at the paper, but then don't let that stop you. Have a look at it. Okay. ठीक है. I don't want to overstress and overstay my limit, overstay my welcome. So that brings us to the end of this class. But again, I don't think we have been able to complete all the questions of 2017. So what we'll do tomorrow is that we'll continue with 2017. Okay. And probably this coming weekend, I intend on having a marathon stream, a marathon class. Probably this weekend or sometime in the next week, sometime we'll figure out a slot, 3-hour slot where we can discuss all the questions of a particular type. My intention is to make sure that you are able to crack all the questions of RC. Okay? I don't care about your reasoning, syllogism, ye wo falana dhimkana. My job is to make sure that your RC is pakka, and that I shall do. ठीक है? Till I see you again, guys, tomorrow. Please do join me again tomorrow, 7 p.m. same time. Till then, this is Bhuvan Apurva Jha signing off for Study IQ. Keep studying, and I'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Thanks again.